1. I believe that second shift is probably the most important position on the front desk in any hotel. The most important position in the hotel is housekeeping, obviously. Because second shift is when most everybody is checked in, any problems that aren't resolved on second will reverberate into third and cause hella turmoil. My second shift person really messed up a check-in. I can't explain what happened in words. It'd need a diagram. The gist is that a guest had 2 rooms and their check-in got messed up. I called one of the rooms the guest was supposed to have checked into, but the system showed they hadn't. In fact, that room showed out of order because I heard sounds. They confirmed that they were in, I fixed the problem and set about cleaning my lobby. A few minutes later, a man comes down, clearly agitated, and starts getting aggressive with me. I've been called 3 times to figure out what the fuck is happening. What the fuck is your all's problem? It continues like that for a few minutes. I try to patiently listen and empathize, but every time I softly, gently try to explain, he starts talking over me. Seriously, more cursing, you get the idea. No, dog, what the fuck is your problem? I ask. Now I'm getting angry. If you'd shut up for half a second and listen, I'd explain what's going on. God damn. Man is immediately chiller. I explained what was happening, how I was trying to make everything right for everybody. I 100% understand why he's angry. I run through everything I'd been told by second, why I'd called up to the room, and everything got hashed out. I apologized for getting angry with him, and in a shocking twist of events, he also apologized. He admitted he shouldn't have come down with so much anger. I put some points on his account. He didn't ask, just a gesture of good faith. And he actually shook my hand afterward. I do not ever suggest getting angry back at a guest. I slipped because I'm sleep-deprived and hungry, thanks to a colicky 2-month-old and new diet, and it worked out well this time, but it easily could have gotten worse, and I'm glad it didn't. The funniest part was, there were a few older men in the lobby all chatting and drinking, and as soon as this guy came down, they all quieted. Their ears grew 3 times their normal size, and after the resolution, one of them came up and said, "I'm okay, young man. Handle your business." Have a good night, everyone. 2. What follows is a collection of some of my most interesting calls, working in an off-site call center for multiple hotels, and not at the front desk. Call 1, the weirdo. The call was for a hotel and casino in Las Vegas. The man said his name was Roxon Huge Dixel. When he spelled anything, he used very inappropriate words for his phonetic spellings. He made a point of telling me he needed a king room because he would have an adult woman with him. I figured almost immediately that he was just a pervert, but he was also really pushing the act, so I could not tell if he was a weirdo that actually wanted a room or just a weirdo. Eventually, he hung up after giving me his credit card number, but not his security code. Call number 2, the masturbator. This was also for the hotel in Las Vegas, and this guest was whispering things in the background that I could not hear every time I spoke. At first, I tried to push through anyway, until I heard some very distinctive sounds, including moaning, and told him I was going to disconnect the call. Call 3, the jokester. I hope. This was for a hotel in New York, a fairly high-end place. As part of my script, I am supposed to ask what brings him to the city. His answer was, "I'm selling drugs." He then paused a moment and told me, "Don't worry, I won't do any business at the hotel. It is sacred ground, like the Continental." I laughed and heard his wife in the background telling me to not encourage him. I finished the reservation as normal, but always wondered if he was just making a joke or if that was his real reason for coming to New York, and he was trying to play it off as a joke. Either way, none of my business, but it was a funny call. Call 4, the paraphernalia call. I was making a reservation for a guest in Southern California, and I was about 3/4 of the way through getting all of their information. I was just about to get their credit card information when they suddenly said they had to go and would call back to finish the reservation. As they hung up the phone abruptly, I heard somebody in the background say in a panicked-sounding voice, "I had the paraphernalia." The reservation was for that night, and as far as I know, they never called back. Call number 5, the teenager. This was also for the hotel and casino in Las Vegas, and I could tell almost immediately that it was a teenager, but since I could not be sure it was not an adult that just sounded young, I had to proceed with the call until I was sure. It started off normally, except I would hear a little giggling in the background. As I was going over different room options, she said, "I need a really big bed, because my boyfriend and I are going to have a lot of sex." At that point, I did ask her age, explaining the minimum check-in age, and she swore at me and hung up, while her friends giggled in the background. Call number 6, the entitled rich dad. This was a hotel in Key West. A man called wanting to book a room for his son for that night, which I believe was a Friday night. He wanted to pay for the room himself over the phone. I explained that the only way to pay for it, if he was not there, was to do a credit card authorization. But that could not be done for a same-day check-in, as the hotel's policy is that they have to receive that authorization at least 24 hours prior to check-in. He insisted that he was a Platinum American Express holder. Ooh. So we had to allow him to pay for his son's room, even though he was in a different state. After quite a bit of back and forth, he finally decided to just PayPal the money to his son instead. Almost 20 minutes of argument could have been avoided if he had just chosen to do that, when I told him what he wanted to do would not work. Call 7, the third-party lies. A guest called me because her son was at the hotel in Miami Beach trying to check in, and was unable to check in because he was only 18, having just turned 18 that day. She was in California and had sent him to Florida on his own for a birthday trip. The minimum check-in age for the hotel was 21, but she had booked through a third party who told her that the age was 18. It was 8 p.m. on a Friday night and the poor kid was standing there in the lobby with nowhere to go. I did call the front desk and ask the manager if there was any way to make an exception under the circumstances, but he said it was not possible. When I explained this to the boy's mother, she was extremely upset and said that we had to honor what the third party told her because they represent you. I explained that they don't represent us, they purchase rooms from us and resell them, and that we unfortunately have no control over what they tell the guests. I was not allowed to recommend any other hotels, as we were not allowed to cross-sell in Florida, so I suggested that she might do a Google search for hotels in Miami Beach with a check-in age of 18. She hung up, and I'm hoping she was able to find one. I know there are some, but I did not know if any of them had rooms available. Call number 8, more third-party lies. I had a guest call me to confirm an early check-in at a hotel in Monterey for that day, which had been promised to her by the third party she booked with. I explained that we can't guarantee early check-in, but agreed to check with the front desk to see if her room would be available any earlier than our normal 4 p.m. check-in. We were actually sold out the night before, but I explained that early check-in was not possible. She then said, "But I have an email from your hotel confirming my early check-in and I paid extra for it." I thought that was strange, so I asked her to look at the email and see what email address it came from. It came from a random Outlook email address that had nothing to do with the hotel, but the signature showed as if it was our hotel. I apologized and explained that the email did not come from us. She hung up after telling me that she was going to call a third party and give them a piece of her mind. She had needed the early check-in because she had a wedding to get to, and had to change first in the room and was supposed to be at the venue by noon. She had wanted to check in at 10 a.m. when our normal check-in time is not even until 11 a.m. 3. I'm fairly certain I will be getting fired tomorrow. I'd like to hear what others have to say about this interaction. Do you think I'm in the wrong? What can I do to prepare for the inevitable meeting tomorrow? I work at a decently sized Chariot hotel in California. We have a guest staying with us for a little over a month now, Mr. Patel. He is staying with us for business under a company that makes the hotel a lot of money from its frequent guests and events. He and I haven't really gotten along well during his stay. There's been a history of me politely informing him of something and then he'd twist my words. Then when I try to correct it, he gets annoyed. Anyways, the same thing happened today, but this time it escalated. Around 7:40 p.m., Mr. Patel calls us to check if we have a shuttle available. We told him we did, and he said it'd be there soon. After the call, we noticed that we had a huge spike in last-minute reservations that oversold us some room types. Usually no big deal, but as we were in the process of fixing it, we noticed that housekeeping left us without enough clean rooms. We were scrambling to make a plan and ultimately decided that we had no choice but to have our houseman, who is also our shuttle driver, clean a few rooms, and I would help them as much as I could. As my other front desk co-worker and I were talking about this, Mr. Patel comes up to us ready to go. It was about 7:55 p.m. He wanted to go to a temple, and as we were looking at the place where he wanted to be dropped off at, we noticed that it was closing at 8 p.m. We confirmed if he still wanted to go since it was closing soon. He said he knew it was closing, but he wanted to see if it would still be open when he gets there. He wanted the driver to wait there while he checked, and if it wasn't open, he would come back. It was a little annoying, but I said okay and kindly asked him that the next time, please try and check if the place will be open for sure or not before we drive, because our husband can get very busy around these times. He said it was not his fault for us giving him misinformation, and next time we shouldn't say it's available. I politely tried explaining to him that it wasn't misinformation. We do have the driver available. I was a little annoyed that he wasn't understanding what I was saying. This guest has a history of that, more on that later, but did not speak to him in a rude or even rushed tone, even though I was under some pressure. I'm usually very good at staying professional during times like this. I then tried again a few times to explain that wasn't what I was saying, but he would raise his voice at me and cut me off every time, saying that he will not argue with me, he is telling me what to do. He then said that whether or not he can get the shuttle is fine, but we should not tell him it is available when it is not. At this point I was getting very upset but stayed calm and did not raise my voice at him even though he was yelling and cutting me off. I'd had enough of him being completely unreasonable and told our houseman to never mind, no shuttle right now, we were too busy with other things. He of course was not happy with this response and continued yelling at me in front of a few other guests. I apologized to him and said we could take him tomorrow. He screamed for the manager's information in my name. I handed him my manager's card, stuck out the side of my chest, and pointed at my name tag so he could clearly see it. He tried calling the number on our card, but that got him even more upset. My managers don't have a direct line, so the number on the card only calls the hotel. He said I tried to lie to him again and gave him the wrong information. I said that their emails are on the card and they will be here tomorrow if he'd like to speak with them. He pouted his way to the couch and sat there for a while. In the meantime, my husband and I were on our way to go clean rooms. I did not see him again for the rest of the day, and luckily we were able to get everything sorted regarding the rooms. I sent an email to my manager explaining the situation, pretty much as you're hearing it now. I had the next 3 days off, thankfully, so the only thing left to do was wait. The next day I got a text from the coworker that I had worked with then, and she said that my manager was not upset. She said she would talk to our sales in regards to this company's guests due to him also having a sour attitude towards our restaurant staff. I'm pretty close to my manager, but I also understand money talks. I was happy to hear this, though, because I was fully expecting her to take his side, because he was with the high-spending company. Well, the next day I got another text from the same coworker saying that my manager ended up talking to the guest, and now the tone has completely changed. She is siding with him now, and is even planning a lunch with him, sales, and a head group coordinator of the company, as an apology for the incident. They are also wanting me to apologize for what happened. I knew it was too good to be true. I did not plan on apologizing for any of this for multiple reasons. I know I could have just accepted that he was not going to understand what I was trying to tell him, but after so many similar interactions with him, along with stress from the oversold rooms, I really wanted to stand up for myself this time. I have a feeling that not apologizing is what's going to lead to me losing my job. I guess it's a pride thing at this point, but I'm not sure I care anymore. I suppose I'll just have to wait and see. What follows are some of the other interactions I've had with him, and others from his company. This guest and a few others from the same company have a terrible habit of last-minute shuttles to places like Walmart, the mall, temples, different restaurants, etc. every single day. Sometimes they only want the driver to take them places and immediately come back. Sometimes they make the driver wait for them outside of their destination for up to 20 minutes and then come back. A lot of the time before we take them, we ask them if they would like to schedule a pickup as well, but they decline every time. It is becoming a tiresome process, and this was the final straw for me. Also, bear in mind that our driver's job is not only to drive, they are also supposed to be in the back doing laundry and handling guest requests. I have attempted to politely communicate with Mr. Patel before. I once said to him that we'd greatly appreciate it if he and his colleagues could please let us know a pickup time for future shuttles. He said that if someone dropped him off, he will let us know when we can pick him back up. He completely skipped over the point of what I was saying, but I did not push it. I tried explaining that our doors were locked after 8 p.m. and to please make sure he has his key on him, just in case we are not there. He smiled and said, "No, if you are here you can open it." I tried once more to explain that yes, we can open it, but it was just in case we were not here. He continued to smile and condescendingly said, "Well, you are here, so you can open it for me." Again, I did not try to push my actual point any further. He and some of his colleagues have a history of sometimes booking the shuttle to go somewhere, but when the time comes, they are nowhere to be seen. When we call them, they say they will be down in 5 to 10 minutes. They are often not down at that time, instead they are late. So the shuttle driver either waits or comes back later when they are actually ready. This messes with our scheduling for other guests who need the shuttle, as we are not sure when it will be available next at that point. After a few times of this happening, I spoke up to Mr. Patel. I told him we are happy to schedule shuttles for him, however, we noticed that they weren't always down at the specified time, and to please let us know if they will be running late for it. His response was simply he will get there when he gets there. He tried calling the front desk once from his phone, and when I picked up, there was nobody on the line. I said hello 3 times before hanging up. He called right again after. Same thing. He called for a 3rd time, and this time my coworker answered it, and he was finally there with no hesitation. Later, when he came back from a shuttle pickup, he came up to the front desk and spoke to me in a very belittling manner, saying that in future I need to wait for someone to speak before hanging up the phone. I apologized and tried explaining to him that I spoke a few times and waited for a bit, but nobody was there. He got upset and again said no, I need to wait for someone to answer. I told him we're busy and cannot wait for a long time because we have other calls and many check-ins. He was getting visibly upset and kept insisting that it was my fault for not waiting. At this point, I did not want to deal with him anymore, so I just said, all right. 4. This is a story from last year from my old hotel. I was the front desk supervisor there when this happened. Now, since it is important to the context of the story, me, my coworker, and the maintenance man are all white. Our head of housekeeping is a black woman. Karen here is also a black woman, and our F&B manager is Hispanic. Also, of course, her name isn't Karen. Honestly, don't remember her name, but Karen seems to fit. So one day I check in this guest like normal and everything goes well. They were in for a 2-night stay in one of our suite rooms and thought nothing of it. Well, come 3 days later, I am working morning shift and the guest comes down and asks to extend her stay by 1 night. I said, of course, miss, let me check to see if we have the availability for that. So I look in the computer and her room type is available, so I go ahead and extend her stay. Alright, we do have that open for you. Let me get a new authorization on your card and I can get you new key cards. Everything goes perfectly fine and thought it would be the end of that. Oh, how I was wrong. For the next 7 days, she comes down in the morning to extend her stay over and over again by 1 night. We hadn't really had any issues, so we go ahead and do it, getting a new authorization each time as per policy. Well, one day she calls the hotel instead of coming to the front desk to extend her stay, at about 9 in the morning, according to my coworker. They try to authorize her card, but it won't go through. They tell Karen as such, and say unless they get a new form of payment, they will have to check out in a few hours. Karen then demands to speak to our GM. I don't know how that went really, but I do know that when I came in at 1 p.m., my GM told me she was supposed to be coming in at 2 p.m. to put payment on a new card, and said if she can't, then I have to check her out. I didn't think much of it, as it happens sometimes. Well, 2 p.m. comes and goes, and Karen doesn't show up till 3 p.m. I'm there with my maintenance man, head of housekeeping, and another coworker when she shows up. We were just chatting about the upcoming weekend when she storms up and starts yelling about how unfair it is she had to put a new card on file when she has been here for a week. I smiled politely and said, "I'm sorry, Karen, but it is hotel policy to have payment before we extend your stay." She then scoffs and gives me a new credit card. I swipe it and it declines. "Sorry, Karen, but this card is declining. Do you have another form of payment?" She then starts to lose it and says, "No, I don't have anything else. I can pay tomorrow. I just need the room one more night." "I'm sorry, Karen, but if you don't have another form of payment, then I'm going to have to ask you to leave the hotel and check out today."
"What do you mean I have to check out? I've been here for a week. You can't give me one more day?"
"As per orders from my general manager, we do have to ask you to leave and check out."
"Well, I'm not checking out. You can't make me leave."
This is when the maintenance man informs her that we had already gone and locked her out of her room, so only we can let her in. This caused a 5-minute argument between her and the maintenance man trying to explain things, and our head of housekeeping, who normally keeps her cool better than me, telling this woman she has to go. I took a back seat in this so I can keep my composure through this all. After about the 5-minute mark, I chimed in again. "Karen, I do apologize, but since you have become such a hostile guest and are now refusing to leave, I will now be calling the police department to come evict and trespass from this hotel, and you will no longer be welcomed back." She then ran to the elevators to try to get into her room, screaming at everyone, saying that we were racist, and her daughter is in the room, so she will let her in, and she is calling the police on us. I tell our maintenance man to go up and keep an eye on her and then call the police. This started a 3-hour-long process of the police trying to tell her she has to leave, and trying to keep everything peaceful, and that she needs to pack up and leave. During this whole process, she has her phone out, recording, and calling everyone a racist at any chance. At one point, she needed access to the guest's laundry to get stuff from the dryer, and I say, "I can do that for you." I exit the front office with the master key card, and begin walking to the laundry room. The whole time she is behind me going, "I'm gonna get you fired, Mr. Front Desk Soup. You're such a fucking racist, and I'll make sure everyone else is fired." I somehow managed to keep composure through all this, just reminding myself, if you crack, she wins. So at 6 o'clock, she came and tried to claim she hasn't had enough time to get everything out, and that she needs more time, but the police weren't having it. They told her she will need to leave the hotel now and come back to finish packing in the morning, and they will meet her here at an agreed-upon time, and that she isn't allowed back without them. Now, dear listeners, I thought I was done with this woman since I wasn't scheduled to work till 3 p.m. the next day. Boy, was I wrong. I got to work early to find out what happened. I take the back way to the front desk that is through the kitchen at 2:30. Lo and behold, there is Karen standing there yelling at my coworker, head of housekeeping, and our F&B manager and calling them racist. I see this and just turn right around and go back into the kitchen, hoping she didn't see me. I wasn't that lucky, as she spotted me and tried to yell at me to come back. I simply ignored her and kept walking back to my car to wait it out. Thankfully, from what I heard, one of the police there stopped her from following me into the kitchen. As for the ending of this story, she started refusing to pack anything again, so, with help from the police who had body cams on, the maintenance man went through and packed up all her stuff and brought it to her in the parking lot. Now, after that experience, we called all 10 or so hotels around us to warn them, and come to find out the reason she was there at 2:30 was because she was getting evicted from another hotel that morning. 5. Okay, so ever since I started working at my current hotel, I've had massive problems with one coworker. The person who trained me actually told me it's better to say as little as possible to her because she's nosy, racist, and causes a lot of problems, and the only reason she hasn't been fired is she's already said she'll sue for ageism. Yes, she's older, but she should not be working since she can't do any single part of our job right. She's constantly screwing up, and as a person I avoid confrontation and arguments because it triggers both my anxiety and PTSD. Well, she keeps screwing up bigger and bigger. I've had her know there is someone not in our system in her room and do nothing about it. I'm constantly getting yelled at by guests for her screw-ups. Like almost daily, it's that bad. Today, I had 2 guests tell me that they were told by her that I messed up the names in the notes of their folios. She checked them in and did it on my day off, and our change history shows this. And then proceeded to yell at them and follow them out to their vehicles this morning and scared them so bad They actually said they were scared for their safety. For months, I have gone completely out of my way to make sure she can't screw up, by leaving tons of notes on anything and everything that I can to avoid it, mostly to avoid the guests yelling at me about her screw-ups, and she still messes up. Last night she tried to yell at me for not leaving her a note about several reservations. It was my day off when that happened, I wasn't working, but it's her job to check that stuff. And honestly, there's been times I've been legitimately scared of her, feeling like she's getting so mad she'd hit me. But I've mostly just ignored it because I felt just her anger and yelling triggering me. My first night she scared me so bad by randomly asking me how I knew these people I wasn't sure I even knew. Turns out she stalked me on Facebook and didn't friend me, so I had no idea. I have been here now 8 months, and with these guests telling me this, I feel I have no choice but to go to management now. But I'm so scared it'll cause more problems if she's not fired, and I'll be put in a bad position. And once again, because management won't do anything, I'll have to find another job. Management is of the opinion they would rather have crappy workers than no one right now. I love working here outside of her. My stomach is already in knots just thinking about talking to my manager tomorrow. Our GM recently left, and I was really hoping to move up to management here, especially now that I have insurance. Part of the problem is my manager that's left knows she can be racist as she experienced it herself. Ironically, the other night auditor I feel so much safer with, but she's asked me if I feel scared of him, simply because he's a black man. And I told her no, I feel safer with him here. I do, it's completely true. He's one of the nicest men I've ever met. He walks me out at night and makes sure I'm safe and okay, but with her, I dread working and I'm always on edge and sometimes scared she'll lash out and hit me. I'm currently pursuing my degree in hospitality. I would love to be in management now, which is a big reason I'm staying knowing there's an opening. I just hate the thought of getting someone into trouble and causing problems. I've had bad experiences in the past when bringing stuff up to administration. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Coahw, episode 97. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, if you could please hit the like button and share the video around with friends and family. And for those of you who have already done so in the past, thank you very much. It is very, very helpful. Okay, let's see. I don't think we've got any special shoutouts today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is... Okay, this is inspired by a video I just watched. It was one of Casually Comics' videos called Why I Broke Up with DC vs. Vampires, and it got me thinking. Name a fictional character who would be better with fangs. Like for me, and it often is because it's a character I very much enjoy, very versatile, Sherlock Holmes as a vampire. Now, there are stories with Sherlock Holmes versus Dracula, but no. The great detective himself, but as an immortal vampire. There's a story in that. Maybe I'll write it one day, who knows. But let me know what you think. Who are some of your favorites that you think would be great as vampires? Leave your answers in a comment below. Okie dokie. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.